Really, Meg? Another Boba Fett video? You're probably the only YouTuber still talking about it. Maybe, but today we actually have an update for it, my dear friends. So welcome back to the channel. It is I, coming at you once again, your favourite galactic hostess, Star Wars Meg. And as the title suggests, the Book of Boba Fett Season 2 gets a 2025 update. The show came to an end over 3 years ago, and if you've been paying attention, and I don't mean to sound exaggerative when I say this, it's one of those series that Disney and Lucasfilm like to pretend never even existed. They swept the character and the series completely under the rug. You know, Boba Fett was once left for dead on the sands of Tatooine, but now it's his show that's been left for dead. And unsurprisingly, the loudest advocate for the return of Boba is Temuera Morrison, the face of Django, the face of Boba, and the face of the entire clone army. And I stand with him on his frustrations with the current situation. His input on the Book of Boba Fett was entirely ignored, and now he's speaking out. And just to let you know, I'm not putting anything funny in my pipe. I don't think there's any possibility of Season 2. But it hasn't stopped Temuera Morrison being utterly baffled and confused as to why Lucasfilm have sidelined him. And so did you know at Star Wars Celebration in Japan, he confronted Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni about it. He's not the only one frustrated. There are fans like myself who love the character of Boba, loved him in The Mandalorian Season 2, had issues with the Book of Boba Fett, but nonetheless didn't think it was as horrible as some fans made it out to be. And those of us who see this perspective definitely see potential for a Season 2. But since that's very unlikely, looking ahead to the future, fans are hoping the Mandalorian and Grogu is going to bring the bounty hunter back. I wouldn't hold my breath. His schedule also suggests there's kind of no way he was involved with the movie, and so following Book of Boba Fett, Temuera Morrison finally breaks his silence. He just gave us a Book of Boba Fett update in 2025. For those saying he might be playing coy, he might know something, I really don't think so. I believe him. He's been repeating himself for 3 years, and so has Ming-Na Wen. He's had a few vocal cameos in Mando Season 3, in some of the video games, but when you're talking about the daimyo of Tatooine, Tem and his fans want answers. That's the lowdown. And the strangest thing about this, when you really think about it, is that Lucasfilm is punishing him for poor choices that he didn't even make in his own show. The writing and Boba Fett being out of character, being softened and weakened, it's like they're blaming the actor, which is preposterous. But let's dive into what Tem said. Here's the first quote. "I'm sad too. Where is the Book of Boba Fett Season 2? Where the hell is Season 2? I know they're doing an Ahsoka Season 2, and I'm going, where's my Season 2?
Boba Fett on his bantha! Like a bantha!
And then Tem reveals, he asked Dave Filoni if Boba could appear in Ahsoka Season 2. It seems like Dave said no. So then Tem said, can I at least be Captain Rex with his helmet off? We don't know how Dave responded. There are plenty of characters from the Clone Wars and Rebels who are still alive during Ahsoka who didn't appear in the first season. Captain Rex appeared in flashbacks, but we didn't see him in the present day. A lot of characters who survived the Lothal arc at the end of Season 4 have not been seen since. I'd be very surprised if there wasn't at least a reference or mention to him in Season 2. And because he's old, why doesn't Dave Filoni use the opportunity to give us his death? As horrible as that sounds, Captain Rex has had a phenomenal arc. It's better to bring him back one last time, but this time in live action, and maybe show us one final heroic sacrifice. Surely Lucasfilm knows how much fans love Temuera Morrison, the impact he has just appearing on screen. Do you guys remember in Chapter 9 of The Mandalorian Season 2, the final scene of Tusken Boba watching Mando ride off with his armor? We were talking about that moment for weeks. So I wonder if there's any internal drama at Lucasfilm, any substantial reason they're not bringing him back, especially for The Mandalorian and Grogu. I think one of the reasons might be that Temuera Morrison did complain about Book of Boba Fett, saying he wanted to see Boba return to being a badass bounty hunter, and maybe Lucasfilm didn't take that very well. Well, now we come on to a massive comment. Tem ran into Jon and Dave at Celebration 2 months ago in Japan, and he said this, Dave and Jon, I actually ran into them at Celebration. You know what it's like when you see these guys. They've got a look on their faces and there's so much going on. And I go, hey, remember Boba Fett? We had a big hug. And at the end of the day, I said, look, I'm not sure what's going on with you guys. But anyway, I had a great time. Thank you so much. He doesn't reveal any specifics, but he does say there were whispers of bringing Boba back. So maybe it's on their radars, maybe Jon and Dave do have plans, maybe in The Mandalorian's 4th season, but for the moment, he's being kept on the shelf. Quite literally. Listen to his next comments. So it made me feel like, did you ever go to your grandma's house and she had that preservative jar of peaches on the shelf? That's what I think. I'm one of those peaches, and I've been put up on the shelf. I've been preserved for a later date, and I'm gonna be tastier. So yeah, that's all I've heard. I know they're doing Ahsoka season 2, and then he talks about Andor. He says, geez, I needed to be in that Andor. What a show. So I really hope there's a scenario where they do reshoots for The Mandalorian and Grogu, and Lucasfilm listens to the fans and they film a few scenes with him, even if it's a tease right at the end. But Tem is one of those actors who doesn't just return to Star Wars every few years. He lives and breathes it. He's very involved with Boba Fett fandom, Mandalorian fandom. He goes to every Star Wars celebration. He talks about it pretty much every month. He's constantly asking to return. And on top of that, he watches all the new shows. And you know, Book of Boba Fett was the first Mando spin-off. It was before Skeleton Crew, before Ahsoka, and before Mando's 3rd season. So much in episodes 1 to 4 and then 7 set up what would have been a fantastic 2nd season. Boba Fett now has a crew, and not to sugarcoat things, I think it's safe to say the Book of Boba Fett killed off a lot of original Mando hype. Season 3 was the nail in the coffin for many fans. I came across a post that said, there is no better time to be a fan of The Mandalorian than right now, just a year away from the movie. I disagree. The best time to have been a fan of Mando was just before Season 2 and between Season 2 and the Book of Boba Fett. The hype was insane. Today, no one's really talking about Mando. There was some hype at Star Wars Celebration, but the true peak of the series was definitely between 2020 and 2021. So moving on to our next Star Wars update, usually these days I like to separate different topics into separate videos, but because this is a pretty small piece of news, we're not going to talk about it for too long. So during the recent London screening of the original version of A New Hope, Kathleen Kennedy introduced the film. She came up onto the stage and took the opportunity to give us an update on the future of Star Wars movies. And I have to say, her quote was very vague. Here's what she said. We're now in a position where it's broadened the possibility of stories and filmmakers that we bring in to tell stories that mean something to them. It can actually be a standalone that builds into many other stories. And this was her vision 10 years ago. That was her idea for Rogue One and Solo, to have stories that are separate to the episodic saga. This continued in the form of Disney Plus shows, but now that we're returning to the big screen, this will resume in the movies. But many of them, as she says here, are standalones. The Rey movie, Star Wars Starfighter, James Mangold's Dawn of the Jedi. But I'm sorry to have to say this, but when Kathy talks about the upcoming movies, I always take her with a huge grain of salt. It's always recycled wishy-washy statements, and it's a bizarre statement considering the next Star Wars movie, The Mandalorian and Grogu, is very much connected to what's come before. You have to have seen all 3 seasons of Mando and probably the Book of Boba Fett. But in theory, I do agree with what she's saying, but does she really allow filmmakers to go their own direction? Lucasfilm's track record seems to imply no. But what do you think? Is this the right direction for Star Wars? And do you want to see Boba Fett again? If so, in what format? Book of Boba Fett Season 2, The Future of the Mandalorian? Let me know. And if you enjoyed this video, my dear friends, please be sure to give me a big fat thumbs up, subscribe if you're new, check me out on socials, and may the Force be with you, always.